Hey, what up, YouTube? YouTube.com/Robin Black. These are my friends on Periscope over here. I had people on Instagram Live too, but then this thing fell down, so that was the end of that. This is my YouTube channel. It's me and Mark's YouTube channel, really. I will take some questions on Periscope in a little bit. What is great about having a YouTube channel is you literally just, this is where I live. Mark zips over in his car. We got some lights and we hang out and we chat about fighting. I do have a real job. I work for TSN. It is the ESPN of Canada. And yes, I also do short things. If you follow me on Instagram at Robin Black MMA or Twitter, the same. I do 1-minute breakdowns. I've done like 18 of them in the last 2 weeks. But I love to sit with my buddy Mark, who puts this on YouTube. I greeted YouTube, also podcast listeners. Thank you for hanging. I know we don't get, we haven't been super regular lately. That is 100% my fault. I've been traveling, doing commentary and stuff. But sitting down and thinking for 5 to 10 to 15 to sometimes an hour is a real gift. It's a really cool thing. It's very 2018 that we can do this, that we have the technology to do this. And it's also really appreciated that you guys listen or watch. It's a really cool thing. When we look at, we're going to talk about Darren Till versus Stephen Thompson. And the beauty of having your own channel is if people don't like the way you do it, they can go somewhere else. And the people who do hang out with you. And eventually over time, you are surrounded by other people who like the way that you look at things. Some people will shape you. We have Periscope right here. They will shape you to, hey, try this. What about this thought? And it opens up new ideas. But unlike television, you don't have to do it a certain way. And so lately, my 1 minute, and I will do a 1 minute on Darren versus Cowboy. We get in, what is it? Why did this happen? Where did their head move? How did they train it? When they blocked that, what did it open? We get to it. Here, it's about exploration. And exploration is where you get somewhere new. It's where you discover your own weaknesses and your own flaws. It's where you realize the things that we believed a year ago are not true today. The things that we believed 2 years ago, we thought a year ago were untrue, and now they seem true again. That's life. That is learning. And that's why this is the thrill of my life, talking about fighting and analyzing fighting, because you learn constantly. And what you thought you knew turns out to be wrong. And some other ancient idea, what were we looking at? This old Muay Thai technique, Muay Baran, like as my friend Evan Boris says, mother technique. You know, old school, like true traditional Muay Thai. We're looking at it, and it's working again. Ancient approach, working again. This is martial arts. We study martial arts here. And Darren Till and Wonderboy is fascinating for a lot of reasons. This fight, much like Tony versus Khabib, I've got hour to an hour and a half of thoughts on that one. And we're going to do another one next week leading up to UFC 223. We're also going to do an Ask Robin Black with a lot of questions about that. These fights are more advanced, and they're different, and they're expressed different. They're understood differently by the fighters themselves and their coaches and the people around them. And they are contested differently in a different mindset with different physicality. It's all different. And we need new ideas and concepts to understand them. And they show us repeatedly where our flaws in understanding are. But the nature of how we're exposed to ideas through television and media, we are limited by what we believe we know. So when we use the comparisons we're used to using, we find a weakness in our understanding. Khabib versus Tony is one of the great ones. We also find that you believed, and I have questions for the Ask Robin Black that we'll be doing probably today or tomorrow, but it'll come out in the next couple of days, depending on when you watch this, about Stipe's wrestling versus Daniel Cormier's wrestling. Or, you know, Tony's jiu-jitsu versus Khabib's top game. Or in this case, who's got better striking? And we have a lot of weakness in our understanding there, because that's not actually how these fights are contested and fought, but it's how we discuss them. And the way the words that we use shape the thoughts that we have, and not vice versa. The words that we use, try to use a word in your mind. Think of a word, think of an idea that you don't have a word for. An idea, a feeling, an emotion, some concept that there is no word for, right? Try it. Try it right now. You can't really do it, right? Words are the structure of our understanding. So when we say, who's got better striking, Darren Till versus Stephen Thompson, who's got better range management or who's got better or whatever, it doesn't mean anything. Not really. These guys have to go into these moments and fight. These guys have to go into these moments, these real-time moments. These real-time moments where you have to, your brain, based on its experience, has to make a choice whether you come forward on this or you go backwards on this. This is coming at you. Do you move towards it or move away? And away seems intuitive, but it's not always right. Who just took out Frankie? Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega moved towards Frankie Edgar. And that was trained. It could have been literally rock, paper, scissors. Now, as I examine it based on years, decades now, counterintuitive, exactly. Decades now of analyzing fight in its detail, slow motion, moment by moment, bigger picture, going into to train in the gym every way possible. My experience is that I can recognize when somebody's in that true state of flow. And I could be wrong. In 5 years, I might be like, wow, I really didn't understand there were different levels of it, or that you can be mistaken to believe you're seeing it. So I felt like Brian Ortega was reading the lines and reading the 3 dimensions and making the decision of when and how to move in on Frankie. But it truly could have been rock, paper, scissors. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see a 1-minute breakdown, or Twitter, a 1-minute breakdown I did on Frankie Edgar versus Chad Mendes. And I realize I'm going all over the place. And again, podcast, YouTube, wherever we are, wherever you're doing me the honor of listening to this, some people go. Some people love these open-ended abstract ideas of searching because I may come up with a good idea, or I may come up with a bad idea, but it was an interesting path for some people. For others, it's not. Anyways, so Chad Mendes likes to, on a certain moment, fire a right hand. It's been something that he's been trained himself to do. You train yourself to react to certain things that you choose. So Frankie comes in, and he gives it a light pump fake with a slide out to suggest another fake. That draws Chad's right hand because Chad's been looking to beat when he sees that. As he does, it's very hard to throw a right hand off a dip. And when I say that, it's hard for me and it's hard for you. At the high level, it's not hard, but it's not what they normally do. Down, bam. They don't go down, pause, boom. And they can all do it. Sometimes they do it in real time. Sometimes they do it without training. But this appeared to me to be trained purposefully to draw out Chad's shot, go outside it, and land it on the timing with a left hook behind it. Looked exactly planned. It is possible when you go back and you watch the Ortega one, Ortega, it appears, is trying to land that on the exact same combination that Frankie landed to take out Chad. If this is true, and I haven't looked at it in this much detail, but I will, and I'll throw it up on Instagram in a 1 minute. Chad likes to fire the right hand on a certain cue. Chad's right hand is paper. Frankie, what is scissor? Frankie's is slip out right hand, boom, that's scissor. If I'm correct, Ortega on Frankie's scissor pumps rock, or however he did, I think a level trajectory, goes rock. Now, did he know Frankie threw it in that case? Well, Frankie throws that a lot. Frankie throws the 2-3 a lot. A lot of guys fade out or fire back. He moved forward. So there's different things possible. 1, random. Just happened. Happened to catch him. 2, felt it, intuitively read it. Time is perceived slower when in that state and was capable of making the choice. It's an automatic choice. He didn't sit there and run it through like in the Terminator when you choose it, but his brain made the selection to go here based on the information. And 3, rock, paper, scissors. Trained that if he saw this and saw the cues for that, he had an answer. The next level is if that was the case and Frankie watched it back, Frankie would know that one's coming and trick him to draw that and he'd have something else. This happens in fighting. This is happening at all times. So when we're sitting there going, who's got better striking, this guy or this guy, it is momentary, it is situational, it's on the night, it's who made the right choice at the right time. None of those things are factual. They're not. They're not. We can't do it. We can't make that comparison. We can do it because that's how we've compared sports as a culture for a long time. But it's not real. So now we look at, sorry, I'm sure fucking 20 minutes have gone by. Who knows? But it's Till versus Wonderboy is the root of why you started here. And if you're still here, welcome. You're one of these people who likes these meandering fucking strange things. And I appreciate you. So Till, which of those does he do? And which of those did he do against Donald Cerrone? Did he read them and make adjustments? Did he have choices that he had drilled? Does he have a swagger and a toughness that he's just willing to move in closer because he's bigger and stronger? Which cowboy was it on the night? I mean, Darren Till for us, what we have, and I said this before, what's his name beat Cruz, before Cody Garbrandt beat Dominic Cruz. There was zero evidence that he could do that. Zero. No, I guess zero is inaccurate. Depends how you categorize evidence. But was there any evidence that he could had he ever looked good for round one? Not really. He had 3 rounds against the number 60 guy in the division. He lost round 2. That guy maybe had 1 UFC fight and then dug deep to win round 3, which was really good. Was there evidence that he could do any of that? Zero. At least in the later rounds. Although digging deep, even if it's a lower level guy and doing that was just incredibly valuable experience for him. And I'm a huge fan of that kid. I'm excited to see him keep growing. But there's no evidence. Is there evidence that Darren Till can beat Stephen Thompson? Oh, really? Does that mean he can't? Absolutely not. He totally can. We talked about it on Periscope before we got here to YouTube, but there is this flawed idea that we have. We look at something, and this is a really big one. It's a really neat one to go through a few hours of life thinking about this. The amount of times, how often, of course, in this case it's fighting, but in everything, how often do we react as if what you see is all there is? What you see is all there is. And I mean, we do it almost all day, all the time. Somebody's rude to you, they're an asshole. What you see is all there is. You saw somebody flip you off, they are an asshole. That person's mom could have died 10 minutes ago. It's not what you see isn't all there is. There's all kinds of pieces and influence and ideas and shit that you cannot possibly know. And you don't know what Darren Till is way better than Donald Cerrone. That's what you see is all there is. That night, that guy in that place with those moments, be different next time. Also, Darren Till never beat anybody, except Donald Cerrone, and that was amazing. He's amazing. He's better than Wonderboy. What you see is all there is. There's all kinds of shit you don't see. All kinds. Never mind just skill-wise. We're not in the gym. Most of these cases, how many UFC fights does Till have? Either 4 or 5. He's got to draw against somebody that wasn't anybody of a really high caliber, but that doesn't mean he can't beat Wonderboy. All of this information is a distraction from the truth. The truth is, we don't fucking know. And if you stayed here long enough and now you're really disappointed, I'm just telling you the truth. Because you're not told the truth almost ever in sports, politics, in any of these things. Your producers and people who run stuff have told the people who talk to you on the air, make a choice, pick a side, he's got the opposite side debate. That's all lies. And it has shaped the way you look at it. Again, some of the guys that are here and girls that are here on Periscope heard me say this earlier, but I've been on Twitter and linked in a conversation that 2 to 3 people have been having. For 2 or 3 days, they've argued back and forth. This guy says Khabib is the most dominant on the ground, and he will crush Tony Ferguson. And this guy says Tony Ferguson is a killer and he'll submit him. Those are 2 great concepts. And then they said, no, he isn't. He's this. No, and they've been argued for days because there's no fucking information. There's no information. You're like, but Robin, I've seen Khabib fucking smoke like 5 or 6 guys from the top, and I have too, and it's been killer. And I'm a massive fan. But you know how much information that is in the grand scheme of how good is that man? 0. It's this close to 0. Because in that time, he has been Khabib Nurmagomedov 24 hours a year, 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day for the 7 years we've been watching him, or 6 years or whatever. And in that time, we of 24 hours a day, 30 days a month is 240, is 6, is 720 days a month, times 12 a year is 7,200. It's about 7,400 hours. Times 5 years is like 35,000. I probably got lost along the way, but a lot. And what have we seen? We've seen these moments. We've seen that's it. You know, what's he like when he's injured? What's he like when he's scared? What's he like when he didn't get to make fucking prayer service that he's dedicated his life to? What's he like when this particular food is in his stomach? We don't fucking know the answers to any of those things. I had a conversation, I think we did one of these going into Frankie versus Ortega. And I'm like, somebody said, Frankie Edgar's never been knocked out. Ortega is a ground guy. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? You can go back and watch it if these kinds of things interest you. It's a fluke anyways that I said it. Because these things, nobody fucking knows the answer to this. And the smarter, the more you learn, the more you know this to be true. But I was like, you really think Brian Ortega can't knock out Frankie Edgar while Frankie's never been knocked out? That is meaningless. That is meaningless because everybody who's ever been knocked out once upon a time had never been knocked out. Every single person that's ever been knocked out. Nobody got knocked out only for the second time ever in their life. There was a first time. And before that first time, you'd never fucking been knocked out. It's true of every human. What am I on about? What am I on about? I'm on about a lot of the same things I am. And I'm going to work my way through this hiccup in the large sort of grand scheme, long form podcast, YouTube scenario. But we have to backtrack if we're going to continue to learn. We're at a stalemate. We got trapped here. Somebody just said, who's your pick on Ferguson, Khabib? I don't make them. They don't make sense. They're not based on anything. If he wrote, who's your guess on Ferguson versus Khabib, that would be truthful. Every time you see somebody say, you know, website A, staff picks and predictions, if you change it to guesses, it's true. Every time you see your friends on Twitter and Instagram and wherever say, who's your pick, change it to guess, and it's true. It's a guess. Somebody would say, Robin, yours is an educated guess. I've broken these guys down. There's a Tony versus Khabib breakdown that I did. If you would do me the honor and you go on YouTube and you put in Robin Black, Tony Ferguson, Khabib Nurmagomedov breakdown, you'll see a 6 or 7 minute breakdown. I spent weeks just combing through footage for that. I built ranges. I don't fucking know. But Robin, yours is an educated guess. You've spent thousands of hours studying fighting. The more time I spend, the more I realize how little we know. So yes, by the time I've dedicated many hundreds of hours to this fight, hundreds of them, and the lifetime of martial arts study, what I got to is, I don't fucking know. I can guess, but it's just a guess. Is it an educated guess? If I believe it is, I'm being arrogant. Because if I have hundreds of hours of study, I need millions of hours of study. If you have 4 hours of study, you need millions of hours. You have no knowledge. We have almost zero knowledge about Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov in the grand scheme of what knowledge there is to be achieved. We have almost none. We need to release our ego thinking that we know, as I watch guys argue on Twitter. And they'll support it with things like, yeah, but this guy crushed this guy. Yeah, but he submitted Kevin Lee. Almost no knowledge. We have almost zero knowledge. We're white belts. And, you know, if we are black belts, Hoist Gracie, UFC 1, black belt, that guy's a blue belt today. Why? Because what it means to be a black belt then was only this much knowledge compared to where it is now. Now blue belts know that. The best fighters of UFC 11 are not as good as Darren Till's younger, and I don't know that he has a younger brother, does he? Maybe. I was just riffing. Younger brother or buddy that he trains with and he hits mitts with. They're not as good. Changes forever. We don't know. We don't know. And you're like, did you just waste my time? Did you just waste my time? I hope not. I hope this is actually valuable. And I'm not trying to just denounce what we do see, but if we are going to go further than Darren Till's a southpaw, and he's got educated elbows, and he really did a great job of working from the outside, but then against Donald Cerrone, he tricked him and moved into in tight with his Muay Thai elbows. That's not really what happened. It's what we saw. But what we see is not all there is. All kinds of shit's happening. I'm sorry. I wish I had more for you. But I don't wish I did now. I don't anymore. And if it sounds like I'm trying to undermine what we believe, I am. And that includes myself. It especially includes myself. The 1 minutes that I do on Instagram and Twitter, now I try to say things like, he may have thought this, or this may have been done for this reason, or he saw this and tried to. I'm trying to reset my own verbiage and those of any of my friends, or hopefully somebody who's 18 now, who's coming up, or 16, studying martial arts, so they don't get to this barrier where we find ourselves, where all we can do literally is go, well, this is going to be a striking affair. And who's got better striking? Well, I think Darren Till does. Yeah, but Wonderboy has better distance management. We saw that, but his fight with Tyron was a lackluster affair. We're trapped. And the only way we get out of that is backtrack a little bit and look for where we went wrong. Look for the choices down the paths where we took a turn believing this would get us to the ocean, and it turned out it got us to a mountain that stuck us. We have to go back down that path and recheck where we go. You're not going to watch TV in 3 years anyways. You're going to watch some kid who's now on Anchor. You're going to listen to some kid on Anchor, that app that's there now, or on Alexa, or on any of these things. That's where you're going to listen to the next round of it. And I'm hoping that if we pull none of those people, none of those young kids, none of the kids who are training boxing and training Muay Thai and training, martial arts now, believe the things that we hear all the time. And if we're in our 30s and 40s, our job is to pull back and go back down there. Somebody talked about Wonderboy doesn't take risks. Again, I'm sorry, but Wonderboy does take risks. Just not every minute of it all the time. And what we see is not all there is. It's a risk, all kinds of, it's all a risk. Actually, that's maybe the best way to look at it. When you go and put yourself out in front of millions of people on television, that is inherently a risk. You have a risk of being badly hurt. You have a risk of being embarrassed. You have a risk of being humiliated. You have a risk of irreparable damage. You have a risk of failure, embarrassment. All of those. Every minute of every fight is just so deeply risky for everything that we are. Everything that we are. So that's what these two guys will go do. I don't know, guys. It's on me to help find us to a different route here. And I just haven't quite done it. We riff. I riff, and some of you join me, and some of you send me messages, and some of you try to help point me to different books and stuff. There's a fantastic book I'm reading right now called Thinking Fast and Slow. It examines why we see things a certain way. I was saying this with Mark last time we did it. If I say 2 plus 2, you know the answer. If I say 212 times 17, you will use a different part of your brain to do that. But the 2 plus 2 one is not always right. We use that one almost all the time. Darren Till took out Donald Cerrone. Well, he's better. He's way better than Donald Cerrone. Damn it, this guy's a future champion. All that was the 2 plus 2 part of our brain. You know? Gary Tonin, I broke down his debut. One of the more common responses I got was, I think we're looking at a future champion. That's the 2 plus 2 part of your brain. It's not the 212 times 17 part, that's for sure. Because that thing would go in and go, what is a future champion? What are the variables that could happen? How much better could he get? How much better is the average guy getting? Who else is good at that? Like, so much fucking information out there. And I think, you know, if I was paid, and when I go and work on mainstream TV, and I do, TSN here in Canada, it's the ESPN of Canada. And why do we measure the risk factor the same if they fight in a cage or in the backyard? It's a really good question. It's a really good question. I think that's that same thing. Inherently, we look at it and we think it's the same risk, but right away, you add 1 million viewers, you're risking so much more. Reputation, legacy, history, people's opinion of you, if that matters to you. It shouldn't. Your life will be better if it doesn't, but it can affect your life. There's all kinds of things that we risk, you know? But it is this is part of the role I'm forcing myself or wanting myself or feel compelled to take, is to find our way out of this. And exploring these 1-minute breakdowns has maybe helped on some level. Exploring these different ways, cognitive ways that we view things, is maybe helping, but it's also frustrating. You know, it's frustrating. But it's part of the fun. It is. You know, we could just fall into line and just take our turns saying, oh, I pick Wonderboy. He's a more complex striker. You know, his point karate background gives him the ability to make Darren Till miss. It might. Or they could fight 100 times and one of them would win 97 of them. But that on that other night, it went differently. Or a guy could fucking break his leg walking in the cage. All of it is possible. I feel like if we can just, it's so many variables. If we can just embrace that, we'll love it so much more. And again, when trying to figure out, and this is relevant to how you fight one of these guys, this carries over, it all connects. When we look at it, human beings are trying to find patterns. Now, why would we do that? If we reacted, our ancestors reacted, hey, I think I found a pattern every time, the 2 or more lions came and we started to make a plan, that would serve us a lot better than if we were just like, well, fuck, we got some lions kicking around. No, we need a plan. We may not detect a pattern, or we may detect a pattern that isn't really there, but it would give us the instinct to try to prepare for what we're reading, trying to anticipate possibilities through recognizing patterns. So that's our tendency. That's what we do. That's what humans do. And when we watch the things that excite us, for some people it's fucking politics. For others it's football. For us it's fighting. When we watch it, we look and we go, aha, Frankie got knocked out. I've seen other guys get knocked out, and then next time they got knocked out too. Is Frankie coming back too soon? I think Frankie's coming back too soon. We're looking for a pattern. But now you can say, no, Robin, Michael Bisping, I saw it. We're just looking for a pattern. Yeah, but last time I saw a guy who came back too soon and got knocked out, maybe there was actually no correlation between the two. We're looking for patterns. We're always looking for patterns. And as a result, I think it shaped our perspective. So looking for patterns is how you sometimes prepare to fight. Wonderboy doesn't give you any. Or he makes you think you found one. That's the scariest of all. Dwayne Ludwig, he trains his guys. I haven't asked him specifically about TJ and in his last fight, but sometimes he makes you believe that every time he does this, he drops that. And he makes you see a pattern. And you think, well, it's a pattern. It's not really there. It is there. He made you see it because he wanted you to identify that pattern, so you throw this thing. He made you read the pattern. He used our desire to see patterns against him. All this is at play in this fight. All of it. Every single fucking piece of it. It isn't just who can land, who's got more power, who's faster, who's got better kicks. Those things change day to day, moment to moment. Siri versus Alexa, who wins? I don't know, man. Siri does, she's in my phone. Alexa's in something bigger. Size can matter. It all fucking matters, which is why it's hard. And we're dealing with this. I'm just giving you the truth as I see it. My truth, anyways. We don't have fuck all information on Darren Till. Fuck all. Almost none. That's exciting. I didn't think he could beat Donald Cerrone. You know why? There's no evidence he could beat Donald Cerrone. But then again, if I really think about it, there's no evidence Donald Cerrone could beat him. Yeah, but I've seen Donald Cerrone beat all these guys. Yeah, but that Donald Cerrone on that night, how well does he travel? Does he fucking drink beer on the plane and have a hard time cutting? Fuck all this shit matters. Never. How well does Donald Cerrone doesn't like Europe? Donald Cerrone's an American who probably doesn't like Europe. And I say that, I don't know what Donald Cerrone likes, but you wear a cowboy hat a lot of the time. You don't like other countries. That's not true. That's not true at all. It's just all these things, you know. How would they do next time? How would, you know? Confidence. Oh, fuck, you know. Darren Till's got a lot of confidence. Yeah, until the night that he doesn't. Why didn't Darren Till have confidence on the night? Fuck. Who fucking knows? Everything affects everything. If we can start there, if we can just honestly start there, we can build, call that zero, call it that brand new white belt. You know, have you ever seen one of these black belts who like takes off his black belt when he trains with a higher level guy? He's like, I didn't think I should have got that. If we do that, if we take off our black belt or whatever belt we're at, and we go back to almost a white belt and start again. So let's look at it all again with fresh eyes, you know, fresh eyes. That's where we're going to start. If you're still here with me, I appreciate you. We're going to circle back next week because somebody asked light worker, where's Pluto? My wife is in Stratford working, so we're coming back and forth between Stratford and Toronto. Pluto's over there. But Pluto's my dog, for those of you who don't know. But yeah, we got to start there. And if you rode here with me, if you rode with me through all this meandering road, I think it's a good place to start. And we will come back next week and do a deeper, hopefully better, if that's the right word, look at Darren Till versus Wonderboy. And, you know, when I try to go down these roads and free us of the beliefs that we think we have, right? The doctrines, the structures that we think we have, and I free us. People will send me a message and say, well, you said what it isn't. Well, what is it? I don't fucking know. I don't know, and neither does anybody else. But the only way we're going to find out is to free us of these doctrines. And I have observed many much greater than me martial artists who've come before me, much, much greater than I will, greater at their lowest point than I will be lucky to achieve at my best point as a martial artist. And I've watched them all go through this same frustration. The only way to go further is to first find where we're wrong. And in the way that we look at martial arts, we're wrong. And the way we see it and the way we share it, at least publicly, we're wrong in about 90% of it. It's nobody's fault. It's the fault of the structures of how we share information. It's the television is the easiest way to put it. It's not nobody runs television, not Steve Television. You know, it's not Dana. It is just the nature of how we share ideas in real time. And it's the nature of the desire to get the audience to have conflict and debate. And the way you do that is make statements where you believe something to be so. And CNN does it fucking more than sports television does it. And so does all the other ones. Don't get mad at only one. They're all bad. Every one of your favorites bad too. I don't care which of them it is. They're all bad for us. But that discussion that structure is why we think we know stuff. And when somebody's saying who has more power, this guy or this guy, I realize we've done a great disservice. Power is not something you have. Power is something you create. That's, if you're still with me on Periscope, thank you. We discussed this earlier. Who has more power, Joe Rogan or Francis Ngannou? Go look it up. You're like, Joe Rogan has more power. Neither one has power. They both create power through the combination of the attributes, physical and athletic platform that they've developed over a lifetime, and a collection of skills that they, through repetition, created to efficiently express and create power. Joe's, was it a turning sidekick Joe did? Joe's turning sidekick from the time he was 7 years old. He greased the grooves in such a way with his physical form that he had made that he was able to hit this thing that measures with more power than Francis Ngannou hit with a punch. Does Joe have more power than Francis Ngannou? Neither one of them has power. They don't have power. Not just sitting there. Or he's got knockout power in his hand. I don't know. Does he? I mean, it just looks like a fucking hand. Does it have power? Like, can you get a shock from it? No, you express power. You create power. Joe created more power in this moment than Francis did. It's pretty fucking cool anyways. But if we don't understand that, and we start watching fights and going, yeah, but Cody Garbrandt has more power. Why couldn't he do that to this guy? And we don't understand he was moving his feet in a different way, or fatigue affects you, or any of these things. We're in trouble. Sorry, we're not in trouble. Watch fights however the fuck you want to watch them. But if you're still here with me as I meander through these ideas over and over again over time, it's because you're hoping that we find our way to some new perspective, some new way to understand it. And I thank you for hanging with me. I really do. And I do promise you that by the time when we come back next week and look at Darren Till and Stephen Thompson, I'm going to have some new ways to compare or to project what we might expect. Okay? Thanks for hanging with me. Appreciate it. Blackout.